working in the hospital setting, clinical settings that I was working in for over 2 decades, I started to kind of see this interweaving of the same issues among women in particular about being the nurturer but not nurturing themselves, knowing what to do but then not following through and doing those things. And so although I would spend whatever time I could with them in that setting, I felt they needed more. So I created the Women's Wellness Lounge. It just sounded sexy, it sounded, non-threatening, it sounded safe, and I ran with it. The women here really are hungry for what we have to offer, and that is just that safe space to come and share what their experiences are and really finding the resources under one roof and not having to piecemeal it or put it together.
It's so important to share our stories,
Yes.
right? That's where it begins to remove the stigma associated with mental health. And the interesting thing about us as human beings is the last thing we want to share with others about ourselves is our vulnerabilities, right? But vulnerabilities is the first way in which people feel connected to you because you become relatable to them.
That's right.
Like, okay, so you're not perfect. You have these same challenges that I too face, and they feel instantly connected to you. To understand this is important because that's how we can connect and provide the resources they need.
When we think about stigma and the stigma around mental health conditions, it's all this lack of education. I think it takes individuals like you working with families to really educate them around what mental health conditions are and making people feel safe and talking about it and treating it the same as a physical health condition. Our heads aren't separate from our bodies, and we have to treat the whole human. And I really think this education piece as a community is so incredibly important because we've spent so many years and decades just not talking about it. I didn't learn about mental health in school when I was, growing up, and I'm so relieved to see finally this education happening younger and younger within our schools. But I think too, as those kids are going home and are feeling more comfortable talking about their own mental health, if they have parents that didn't receive that same education, they're stopped right there. And so we've got to treat the whole family.
I started Whole Family Healing Group based on a lot of the experiences that I had within my own family. There was not a lot of communication within the family unit. There was some dysfunction, and I found that there were family members who were still upset with each other about things that happened probably 20, 30 years ago. I help individuals as well as, the entire family system learn how to communicate with each other. People don't know how to say you hurt me versus I don't like, They don't know how to say.
It's easier to just not deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And
to
so
say,
again,
I'm angry with you, I'm mad at you, instead of saying you really hurt my heart, you let me down. So I try to, teach clients how to communicate on a different level. I call it on a heart level.
Absolutely.
On a heart level, like communicate, from your heart, because when you say certain words, it kind of touches your heart and your soul a little differently versus, being combative or yelling at each other.
Right. My mom was a nurse as well. So we had conversations, but it was always conversations about other people. So there was conversation and communication, but not dealing with what we were going through. I regret a lot of that. And so in my own family, I changed that with my daughter. We now share and talk about everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, the unknown, being vulnerable. What does that look like? I don't want her to look at me and see as if my life is so perfect and everything's fine and my mom doesn't deal with this. No, I tell her when things are tough, when I'm, maybe having a stress moment or when they're great, when they're good. But how did I get to that point? I didn't want to paint this rosy picture that it doesn't require a lot, that there's not sacrifice that doesn't come, that there's not headaches. I am definitely changing the narrative, and so prayerfully she'll do the same.
I have 3 adult daughters, and I can tell you, similar to what you said, Dr. Watkins, speaking to your mom, you never really talked about stuff like that, right? But with my daughters, I do. And the beautiful thing is them, as well as their partners, are not shy about seeking therapy. They will immediately go out and get it.
Yes.
In the past, it would be like, oh my gosh, I got to do it secretly. Maybe I shouldn't. There's something wrong with me. They are just very open about it, that they're, having a mental health crisis. I'm going to seek help. I'm like, good for you. That is wonderful. Right there, they're seeking help.
Why do we think that this generation seems to I mean, because when I'm telling you, they're like, oh, you need therapy, or I have a good therapy. Like, they're throwing it around now like it's cool, like it's
I think
no
therapies
problem.
become cool because I'm on the, sometimes like I've been with my clients and their phone will ring. I'm in therapy and I'm just like, oh,
Yeah, that's what I mean, right?
okay,
Like they have no
amazing.
problem sharing that, but generations past, it's like
Yeah,
you don't
they
tell
don't tell.
anybody.
Right.
Oh, they're at the doctor, or they're at an appointment. It can be something very high level to describe where they are or where they're going, but never now it's. Oh no, I have therapy at that time. Or if a phone rings, I'm at therapy. Like I have no problem now
I
saying.
love it though.
I do
That's
too.
how it
I
should
do.
be.
Yeah.
We're getting there. That's what we got to work towards.
So I think we're definitely moving in the right direction. The needle is definitely moving in the right direction. Like if you need therapy, that's your superpower. You recognized you needed therapy and you sought therapy.